Yaritza, the podcast that dives deep into the inspiring world of women of color in the edtech industry. It's raw and authentic. There is no format, right? The best kind of professional development and conversations are those that are unscripted. Welcome back to Innovate Her, the podcast where audacity meets impact. I'm your host, Yaritza, and today's guest is a visionary voice in the digital branding space. An Afro-Latina like myself, she's a CEO who's rewriting the rules of professional storytelling and social media strategy. Joining us is Lynette White, founder of Lynette White Social LLC, the author of the Ed Branding book, podcaster, trailblazer in this ed tech space and education. Whether she's helping educators elevate their online presence or crafting strategic communication plans that resonates, Lynette brings brilliance, y'all. She's bold, she's deeply committed to representation, and today we're diving directly into her journey, her impact, and her legacy. Lynette, let's kick off by sharing with everyone listening who you are and how you're currently feeling.
Thank you so much for having me on, Yaritza. I'm so happy to be here. Definitely a proud Afro-Latina, like you said. You know, gotta support each other for sure. So I'm Lynette White. As you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Lynette White Social LLC. I kind of consider us a boutique PR firm. We're a group of strong, powerful women who love storytelling and amplifying voice. I've been in education for about 16 years, and I have had many roles in education. I started as a classified employee and then just kind of worked my way up. Was exposed to communications and really fell in love. It became my passion really quickly. So I went back to school, got all the things that I needed to get, got my bachelor's and master's in communications. And now I'm being an absolute crazy person and going back to get my doctorate in in organizational change and administration from California Baptist University. So I start that in about 3 weeks.
Wow.
I'm like biting my nails, scared to death. But really, I'm just excited to be here with you today and so grateful for this platform.
Thank you for sharing. Girl, what you biting your nails for? You got this.
It just looks so scary. And, you know, I'm the first person in my family to do it. So it's one of those things where like you haven't really seen, I've seen like our mutual friend, Dr. Nairi Clark, amazing.
Yeah.
I saw her go through her whole journey. But in terms of like my family, I'm like, oof, all the pressure's on me now to get this done, right? So I can show people that it could be done in my family. So yeah, just excited.
Oh, I love that. That's how I felt with my second master's. Like my first master's, I was like, all right, my mom has a master's, my aunt has a master's. When I told everybody that I was going for my second master's, they were like, wait, why?
Yeah.
First was the why, right? Do you want more student loans? And then I started my EDD and I did a year, and then I kept questioning, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And even my mom brings it up all the time. You don't want to finish the EDD? I mean, you only have 1 year left. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Maybe, right? Maybe a couple of years
eventually. I mean, you are kind of doing a lot of things right now.
We are doing a lot of things right now. Y'all, if you go on Lynette's page, let me tell you something, right? At the beginning of this introduction, I said that she was a branding strategist, right? If you go on her page, you are going to see flawless branding, okay? Flawless. There's not a post that I haven't seen that doesn't make you want to engage with the post. And that's what I really want to dig into today. But I also want to talk about the fact that you're an Afro-Latina doing the damn thing, right? You're an Afro-Latina CEO. Let me change that up. So I want to dig deep. How has your cultural identity shaped the way that you approach storytelling and strategy?
You know, I think being that little Black and Puerto Rican girl in the Bronx who felt like she never saw herself represented in like these high roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just felt like it took me forever to get a teacher who even looked like me, let alone, you know, my family is great. And, you know, they were military or police background, super successful in their careers. But in terms of anything more, anything outside of that, I just didn't have those mirrors to look at to see myself. And so I think the work that I do now, I always think of that little girl and all the other little girls and boys who probably feel the same way and I get it a lot in my work when I go into classrooms and students are like, wait, you do what? that's what you do for your job, and you look like us, and you kind of grew up like us, and you're able to do this now. And so it's really interesting because in school PR, I want to say the percentage is like 75% white women. And so even being amongst my peers, right? I still stand out. It's not a space where there's, I think, enough of others represented. And so part of why I have the platform that I have and I've built it the way that I have is because I do want people to see that there are people that look like me in school PR.
Hmm.
Media and PR in general, we know is typically very white. It's typically very white men in those industries, but
Yeah.
in school PR, it's more white women, and that's great. We can all coexist, but for me, I think that I want students to see that this can be an option. This is a tangible job. This is a thing that you can do. You can thrive. You can do all the things that you're putting in front of yourself, and you can do them really well. While it's uncomfortable for me to be so public sometimes and be so out there with all my stuff, I always think of that little girl in the Bronx sitting in the classroom and just looking around and being like, I was never black enough. I was never Puerto Rican enough because I was both, right? And I was always very, very firm in both. Those forms that you would fill out back in the day where it was like, pick one. I was like, I can't pick one because I'm both.
Right. The nerve.
Right? And I love that the forms now have multiracial. I'm like, okay, we're better. We're in a better space now. But for me, I think that my storytelling is definitely impacted by that upbringing of not getting those opportunities to see myself reflected in these possible positions that I could hold in the future. And so I really do think that you need to see it to be it, or to believe that you could be it. And so I really use my platform, and I hope that that conveys. I really use my platform for people to see, not only just the race thing, but also, a working mom,
Yeah.
a working mom who can get it done, I didn't go to college right out of high school. So my story has all these different paths that I took to get to where I am today, and yet still here I am. And I'm thriving. Some days I'm like biting my nails, like I said, and stressed out, but most of the days I'm thriving. I'm grateful. This is my dream job that I'm working in. And so that's kind of the lens that I use to do my storytelling when I do that. And it seems to resonate in the communities that I work in because, the communities that I work with, it's from super affluent to just like the Bronx,
Yeah.
where you don't have as many resources and you're kind of struggling to get there every day. So I'm really hopeful that bringing a little bit of me and my past helps me tell those stories a little bit more authentically.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And our experiences are very similar. Me as an Afro-Latina who grew up in Brooklyn, and I have, said this 1,000 times of how I felt in ESL classes. I was forced to be in ESL classes, even though we migrated here in 1991. My English was good. I was 3, right? And so by the time I hit grade school, of course, I was fluent in English. But what people don't tell our parents is that we have options. And growing up in Brooklyn in ESL, no one told my mom that she had options. And I was always that girl that was just, like you said, right? I was too black and dark for the Hispanics,
Yep.
and I was too Hispanic for African Americans. So I always struggled with identity, especially as a dark skinned woman. And I'm one of, I think, 5 dark skinned women in my family. Everyone else, like everyone always says, like my cousin looks the total opposite of me, right? He's really light, he has green eyes. And whenever we're together, they're like, oh, you guys are a couple. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's my little cousin. That's my little cousin. And then my brother, everyone says my brother looks Dominican, right? And then you have me. And growing up, I struggled with identity. I knew I wanted to be an educator. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. But it was also about finding myself and trying to heal from all of that trauma, right? Of trying to figure out how do I best fit into groups. And
Yeah.
even when I launched my own company, the first thing I said was, I have to create something that my daughter can say it belongs to her. I have to create something that's going to help her with identifying with whatever it is that she wants to be, right? So growing up, we had those choices of when you grow up, do you want to be a doctor or a nurse or a president? No one is saying a digital brand and, a social strategist.
Exactly.
No one said CEO of a company. When you thought CEO, you thought white men in suits.
Yep.
And you are changing what that looks like for girls and kids who look like us and who are from the urban centers that we're from. So before we even move on, I definitely want to just give you your kudos and your flowers because you are doing the work. And like you said, you are a working mom. And I know so many of my friends who have kind of like, I don't want to say made the excuse, but I'm going to say made the excuse of not following through with their passion and dreams because of the fact that they're moms. And I always say, if you got to wake up 2 hours earlier to get it done, wake up
Yeah.
2 hours earlier, right? The same way we make time to go out and to have drinks is the same way you got to make time to pursue your passions, right? And it's not going to happen overnight, but eventually it's going to happen once you put that work in.
For sure, for sure. It is excuses, like you said, and that's a question that I get all the time, and sometimes it frustrates me because, excuse me, I'm like, would you ask a man how he gets it all done? You know, um,
Hello.
it's true, but
No.
right, the answer is no. You wouldn't ask that, but it is you do what you got to do because you know that those kiddos are watching you and they're hopefully being inspired, but they're definitely seeing that, oh, hey, mommy can be at my games, she can be at my school stuff, and she's also running a company. Like, wow.
Yeah. And not only are you inspiring the kids, but I always think about in my line of work, I'm also providing professional development for parents, right? So when I have conversations with parents, they're like, wow, you're doing that? So to hear that from adults who most of the time are older than me,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, where do you find the time to do it? And I go, I make time, right? Just like I made time to be here today to show y'all how to press these keys. But inspiration lies everywhere, right? You touch people even sometimes without knowing that they needed to hear, a specific word or how you've overcome a challenge because that's helping them internally. And speaking about challenges and visibility and voice, let's dig a little deeper. So, what challenges have you faced in amplifying the voices of women of color through social media? Speaking of challenges,
I know that's a very deep one. I think my biggest challenge is I think a lot of people think that I am out there the way that I am because I want this attention. I see colleagues that, don't look like me that are kind of doing the same thing and they're praised. And I am too. I have my people, my support system, but there is definitely a difference in how I'm perceived when I'm being out there with my work or the humble brag or whatever versus, other people. And so for me, I think I started to get some imposter syndrome around that because I was like, oh my gosh, do I seem like this? Is this for real? Like, that's not my intention. What am I conveying? It was kind of looking really deep inside myself of, is that true what they're saying about me, And then I just had to kind of move past that and say, I think all women who are paving their own path probably face these same adversities. And so I just kind of had to step outside myself and be like, look, this is not about you. It's about the work that you're trying to get done and the opportunities that you're trying to open for other people. And I do get reminded of that with my professional network that I have of other school communicators of color who reach out and are like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for being so out there because it allows me to feel comfortable in doing that myself. So my challenge, I think, is just getting outside of myself, like not letting that imposter syndrome creep into me. I'm very big on the let them theory right now. I mean, I've been into it for a while. I got a tattoo that says let them and everything. Like, it was just something that I needed to do.
right?
Because it really lent to that, like, let them think what they want to think. Let them feel what they want to feel because I know what my intention is and I know where my heart lies. And so I'm just going to move forward to do the work that I need to do by any means necessary. However, I need to get that done and not worry about, the outside voices that really don't matter at the end of the day.
Girl, it's coming out your mouth, but I feel the same sentiments. When you are a woman, and specifically a woman of color, you're constantly in your own head saying, one, am I good enough? Two, am I doing this right? And even if you have the data to prove that you are effective and that what you're doing is impactful, you constantly ask yourself those questions. Like, I've been asking myself that question probably twice a day, right? And I see the success, but sometimes I'm harder on myself because I'm afraid to fail. And I know, I've said to students so many times, don't be afraid to fail, right? If you get it wrong the first time, you keep trying. And if you get it wrong a dozen times, eventually you get it right.
Mm-hmm.
But when I reflect and I talk to my inner self and I speak to, younger Yaritza, I go, you can't fail because there's so many people depending on you, right? It's one thing when you're a CEO and you're the only employee. It's another thing when people's livelihood depends on the
Mm-hmm.
success of your brand. It's another thing where a school's, effectiveness, it's all has to align with one, what you signed up for in the contract, but
Right.
two, did I really promote or have impact at the end of this contract? And most of the time it's yes, right? Because obviously we're asked to come back. But little Jariksa is always like, that's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
What can you change for next time, right? And even if folks ask me to do the same exact thing, I always say I can't do the same exact thing. I have to change it up because for me that first time wasn't good enough. And I know there's so many people that are in our line of work who don't have to think that way.
Oh, yeah.
Who don't have to think that way. I remember an opportunity to keynote, and I'm not going to say with what organization. And I remember that I was the closing keynote. Someone that I knew was the opening keynote, and I knew what they were offered, right? Because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some of us we talk,
Yeah.
and what they were offering me was half of what
Yep.
they offered this person. And like I'm the kind of person that if a school district or an organization doesn't have the funding, I'll meet you halfway. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not one of those people that's just like you can't afford me, so I don't want to work with you. No, if I know it's legit that you really just don't have the budget, but you really want, culture response to sustaining education to be a thing at your conference, I'm all in. But I had to write that email. I was like, yeah, yeah,
Good for
that
you.
flexibility is out the window. So what are we gonna do, right? And I didn't let them know that I knew what this person was being paid. It was more of you kind of reached out to me. I didn't reach out to you for this opportunity, right? But I also know my worth. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of who we are, even if it's just based off of contracts and how much we are getting paid for certain things. Because I know for sure I've been working, and I'm not saying that this person hasn't been working, but I do know that this person has been given opportunities because one, they're white, two, they're a male, and three, it's just the topic of AI, right? It's this person hasn't really done any work. I mean, no hating, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No hating, but for me it's if you just go with what's trending and then you say I'm an expert in this area, most people are going to gravitate to that word expert, and that's a word that I don't even call myself. I'm no expert. I'm learning every single day, but I'm fighting because I have to work 10 times harder
Yep.
to calm down my inner self and my inner voice, but also so that people know that I'm legit, although I'm legit, right? So I know that you probably go through the same exact things. And, our inner child, especially from Brooklyn and the Bronx, they're fighting.
Yeah.
They're fighting. And we have to kind of like define what success looks like for us. And I know that's one of my hardest things to tackle this year is to really redefine what success is, because the definition that I had last year was based off of what I assumed success was for other people, right? So that might mean big contracts, that might mean all these announcements on social media. I used to think that was success. And this year I'm like, that's not success because a lot of it is bluff and fluff.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're speaking to me right now because same, same. And I do have to back up a little bit. Your story about the conference, very similar to a client that I did eventually work with, but they reached out to me, and it's a big name in education. And, the person who brought me on knew my background, knew all my stuff, knew all
Mhm.
the successes that I had had with organizations and with people, right? With their branding, their marketing. And then I made it to the next guy, right? Who was like, but wait a second. She doesn't have her doctorate. She's not this. She's not that. She's not the other. It literally took until I had to repitch myself to an organization that reached out to me, mind you, to repitch myself. And then I won him over where he was like, oh, okay, yes, she does know what she's talking about. And
What?
in that moment, for me, that is part of why I'm getting my doctorate. Like, I've always wanted it, and I've always thought, okay, this is not a thing that's going to happen for me. And then now I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it. But it is part of that propelled me to do that, because I'm like, okay, You want me to have all the things? I'm going to have all the things.
Yeah.
Some, if that's what it's going to take.
But the sad part is, and I'll say this as a friend and as Afro-Latina, when we do have all the things are not good enough
Oh,
either,
yeah, no, then
right?
there'll be another measure.
It'll be something else. It'll be something else. I remember one of my friends, he just got his doctorate this year. And I remember him saying something very similar, like, oh, when I get my doctorate, it's more put some respect on my name. And I said, that's crazy, because growing up, my mom emphasized people better put, respect on your name. They better say Yaritza, not Yaritza. So for me, things are a little bit different, because I had that woman who was just like, let me remind you that you don't need all of this, right? And in our space and in our line of work, and I know those of you who are listening in, you're probably like, she keeps staying in our space, in our line of work. But in this ed tech space, in this education space, things get real tricky and political. And whenever you tell yourself that people's opinions don't matter, they actually do, right? Because it's that one opinion that can impact an entire contract. It can impact an entire opportunity. And this person might just not like you because they might want their friend to pitch, right? But every time you fill out all of the boxes and you've completed exactly what they say, this is what I'm looking for in a speaker or in a partnership, they'll find another reason. And it's like a never-ending list of things they're looking for. But the real question is, what have you contributed to this space, right? What are they contributing to this space? Because I love pitching for keynotes. Normally now, people are just like, just send me your keynote title. But even at the beginning, when I became a featured speaker, it was like, all right, this is what I want to do. This is who I am. This is my impact. And I'm a data person. So I would say, I've impacted over 6,000 kids across 6 continents and blah, 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 blah. And now I just go, well, before you reached out, you should have looked me up, right? Because the whole spiel, I no longer do it. And it's not because I feel like I just am too good. It's just, I know you're not doing this to everyone. I know everyone that has keynoted for you is not going through all these hoops. And guess what? I'm tired of going through hoops. I got a big old head, right? Which means I gotta push through. Hey, nobody got time. Nobody got time for that, especially when you're a woman like yourself who has built her brand and who's helping to build other brands. Yeah. So if he didn't know, he better get himself together. If you listen to this podcast, sir, get yourself together.
It's funny because that was earlier on. However, I had already, I think I was just about to publish the book. So it's a little bit of time, but not that long ago. That I was kind of like, okay, but same. I was like, not to say that because I wrote a book, I know it all, but I'm like, dude, I know you did your dissertation. I get you, you're Dr. So-and-so. However, like you said, what else have you contributed? Because I've done this, all to improve the space that we all share. So where are your receipts?
Hello.
But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, you want me to get all the things? You know what? I want to get all the things. And it just pushed me to say, you know what? Yeah, get all the things. It'll make you feel better. And whether I check those boxes or not, I know that the boxes will move. The finishing line will move continuously, and I'll have to adapt and change. But at the end of the day, he's going to have to call me doctor.
I know that's right. Listen, I know that's right. Let me start putting Dr. White.
Right?
Dr. White. Listen, since we're on the topic of all this fluff and bluff, I want to play a game, okay? So we're going to have some fun. So the game is called Brand or Bluff. So this is going to be quick though, right? I'm going to read a short description of a branding strategy or a social media trend. And you have to tell me if it's legit, so if it's branding or brand, or if it's like total bluff.
Okay.
And these are some things that I've seen on social media, but sometimes I'm just like, you really thought that was going to work? But you know how to mind my business, right? All right. So I don't know if you've seen this before, but the reverse carousel trend on Instagram where they post slides backwards, and that's supposed to help with boosting engagement. Do you think that's brand or bluff?
I think it's bluff.
How come?
I think it's, in my opinion, the backwards thing. Like, you're supposed to lead with your best photo first because you've got like 1.5 seconds to catch someone's attention. So if you're starting with the end, which is usually not as attractive and not as sexy, you've lost them. They've scrolled past you now.
Hello. Especially, I don't know if you've seen people's parasols. Usually, you're supposed to. I usually end with a quote. Like if I have like five pictures, I'll
Yes.
end with a quote, or I'll put the quote in the mid, in between.
Yeah.
But some people have put the quote as their image theme or the main image, and I'm just like, yeah, no, because it doesn't make me want to click on your
Nope.
page. I read the quote already, so I know what this is about, and now I'm moving
And
on.
now I moved on.
Now I moved on.
Next.
All right. So Lincoln has this new like AI generated thing, especially for like the professional, what do you call it? The professional profiles. So LinkedIn's new AI generated professional vibe score that ranks your profile tone. And you got to pay for that. So is it legit? Is it brand or bluff?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say it's bluff. Well, I'm gonna say it's a little bit of both because, first of all, what has this AI tool learned that they can then now analyze my profile appropriately? Like,
Hello.
what is their data that they're using to base this on?
Hello.
For someone who maybe doesn't have very much in their profile, maybe it'll give them some good tips and tricks, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll give them some ways to spruce up their profile. That's a lot of what I do is helping people with their LinkedIn. So I could see where AI could maybe help them with that. But yeah, like I'm not putting my profile there and paying for you to tell me what.
That's the part that I can't get past, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm paying something, not someone. I'm paying something
Yeah.
over my work based off of what they deem as professional. And then you gonna tell me that I have to change these things up when
Yeah.
these have been the things and the items that have honestly kept my business afloat.
Right? Gotten you work. Like,
Oh,
and also I don't charge for those sessions. So I'm like, they're charging what?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right. This last one. Oh, and I do this sometimes with your caption, like you want to start off with like a hook and then you actually write, what took place, especially if it was an event, and then you normally end with like a call to action, whether that's your contact information or it's, let's chat or whatever the case may be. That's called like the caption sandwich. Remember when you write lesson plans, we say PB&J, right? So the caption sandwich method to start with a hook, add a story, and end with a CTA. Is that brand or bluff?
It's brand. I think it works. I think it's effective. I mean, it's tried and true. It's brand to me.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, like I literally have to work on a social media post like right after this for something that I did this week. And I love a good hook, right? Whether if it's a question, something that's going to engage. And I tell teachers this all the time. If I walk into your classroom and you're teaching something new, most of the time, especially with my CTE teachers, everything that they teach is new for me because I don't have an automotive background.
Yeah.
And I don't have electrical systems background. But I say you have 5 minutes to hook me. I'll give you 5. 30 seconds is good enough for me. But I'll give you 5, right? Because these are teachers who believe that because it's CTE and because it's hands-on, then students are automatically supposed to be engaged, which we know doesn't work like that, right? And so I say, you have to hook. I need something that's real world connected. I need something based off of your own experience. Like I had a teacher who was like, I had a car like fall on my leg. I said, well, then start off with that, right? When we're talking about safety, right? Because you're going to reel the students in. They're going to be like,
Oh, yeah.
whoa, right? But then that also answers the question as to why you're walking with a limp, right? So now that's out there. I mean, I'm just saying, right?
True, true.
But the idea to start off with a strong hook, now you got people really looking at your post, but also your caption. I feel like long captions, they're iffy, right? Because sometimes it works. Other times people are like, I'm not about to read all of this, right?
For real.
Your Instagram should not have the same exact caption as your LinkedIn. I tell people that all the time. I did a workshop for women. It was like some organization for Black women. The workshop was 2 hours, and I was just showing my analytics, and I was showing my posts, and then I was showing the posts that have the most engagement, which are the ones with the short captions, and the ones with less engagement. And I say we have to be mindful that most of the people that follow us on Instagram, they're not following us because of who we are as professionals. They're following us because they know us as individuals. They want to get to know us a little bit more. So your Instagram has to be kind of like the party spot, right?
Yeah.
And then your LinkedIn is like the retirement home. So I always say I mean, seriously, right?
I know
LinkedIn, I'm
Facebook is
like,
like the retirement home.
it's like the retirement home. LinkedIn is like where I'm like, and this is what I did, and this is how it was, and this was the takeaway. On Instagram, it's like, look, this is what we did. It was great. Here's some hashtags, and that's and that's it.
100%.
And that's it. So I know we have some time, so I definitely want to touch on the Ed branded book. Now that we're talking about social media, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about captions, right? Whether they're bluff or brands. You've authored the Ed Brandon book and you host your own podcast, right?
Yes.
How do you see these platforms contributing to a broader movement of equity and innovation?
Well, first I co-authored the book with Dr. Renee Bryant, and I give her lots of credit because her contributions to the book were phenomenal, and it was actually her idea to write the book, so I definitely want to give credit where credit is due. And then we had a podcast together, the Ed Branding Podcast, and now we've branched out to our own podcast. So my current podcast is Social Chats, and I get to speak to amazing educational leaders. I hope to have you on soon.
I'm coming.
Yeah. And just really amplify their voices. I love elevating stories. And so while at the Ed Branding Podcast, there was a purpose, the book, right? We wanted to promote the book. So we definitely had like Stephen Covey. We had some really high level people on the podcast. And that was fun. It was great. I was so appreciative, which by the way, I got him on the podcast by responding to a post on X. And that's how that happened. So social media works, people. And then Social Chats, when this is my baby now, I really wanted to get a diverse group of people whose stories maybe are not told all the time. And so I think the secret sauce that I have there are finding these really passionate, dedicated educators, professionals who have a story to tell, who are diverse, in all ways of life, and just really amplifying and raising their stories. And I got my biggest, I don't know if you saw the video that I recently did, where I mentioned one of my guests was just recently promoted at a new district. And she had someone who came up from the community to do a public comment. And she actually quoted and referenced the podcast episode as to why the board and superintendent made a great choice.
Wow.
I don't know anybody in that city besides her now. So I was like, okay, the reach is far beyond what I could even think of. And the fact that, her with all her skill set, she was going to get that job anyway, but that our conversation on that podcast could even complement that promotion moment for her, just warmed my heart and made me feel just like this is something that we have to continue doing, is amplifying the voices of others, and really amplifying the voices of others who don't necessarily have that opportunity to do that themselves because they're shy, because as all educators, they're humble and they don't want to talk about what they do about themselves and them professionally. They just want to talk about their students, which is great, but also you've got to feed yourself professionally, right? You've got to build that portfolio. So in terms of the podcast, I know that that's doing amazing elevation of just voices that I think otherwise might not be heard. And then the book is just, that's my other baby. I felt like I gave birth when we published that book. So grateful to Dave Burgess and his team for taking a chance on us. And, it's kind of cool because I think storytelling is a great equalizer. We all have a story. It's how do you get that story out there? And so I'm really proud with how the Ed Branding book shares really easy, tangible ways for people to get that story out there, no matter who you are. From, classified students even. I've done student podcasts in other districts, to community members, to, educational leaders. Like everyone has a story to share. And I think in the book, we really do share some just easy ways for you to really spread that story and talk about how amazing public education is. I think until, the last year, a lot of people didn't necessarily talk about how amazing public education is. And I think now we are all on board of, no, we've got to talk about this. We've got to talk about the amazing work that our educators, our students are doing every single day, day in, day out. Whether they're fearful of having funding or not, they're still moving forward and doing their jobs. And so I'm really, really proud that the Ed Branding book could help organizations, individuals, and everything just really get their stories out there and talk about the amazing work that's being done in public education.
I love that. And y'all, you just heard her say all of the things and all of the reasons why you need to get yourself a copy of the Ed Branding book, right? For me, it's always you buy books to use as references, right? You don't just read them, you take notes. You
Oh yeah.
start to brainstorm, how can I implement this? What are some examples that totally align with what my mission and vision is? So if you are a school leader and you are paying attention to this conversation, please contact Lynette. Please look her up. Please add her on socials because, as I said, her branding is on point. And even if you may not need her services right now, keep her name and her contact information because eventually you will need it, right? Eventually we all need advice, we all need branding, and we all need to find ways to put our work on the map.
Well, I always say educators never retire.
Yeah.
And so what's that next level thing that you want to do, whether it's consulting, being an author, being, a great speaker such as yourself? What are you building so that that's easier in the future? So for me, social media is a portfolio. So how are you building your portfolio now so that in the future you can get all those opportunities?
I love that. And I know we're like over time.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one more question,
Okay.
right? I normally end the segment by asking my guests to give advice to either a young woman or someone who's in the same exact place in their life as we are. So what advice would you give young women of color who want to build a career in branding, in tech or education, but don't see themselves represented?
Well, first, I would say follow me and Yaritza. And, but no, really, I would just say you don't see yourself represented because you're not there yet. Like, you're going to be that person. Also, look for those professional networks, those professional organizations. There are so many out there that are, willing to support you. Look for mentors such as myself. I love mentoring other up and coming PR people. I'm sure you also do your fair share of that as well. And I would just say, persevere through it all. At the end, it will be worth it. Like, I think back in the day, I didn't see very many. Now I see more. And so it'll just be more in the future. So I think we've just got to keep going, keep knowing our mission, keep knowing what we want to accomplish, and it'll get done. You'll get there. I think patience is a virtue that I don't always have. But I think being patient would be probably my biggest piece of advice.
I love that. Y'all, I mean, come on. She's dropping gems. I hope that you came to watch this episode with like a bag to grab all of the gems and pick up all of the pieces that she just shared. Because branding is not just about visibility, right? It's about voice, it's about values, it's about vision. And Lynette not only shared, from her Afro-Latina roots to building what I'm going to call a digital empire, right?
Yeah.
If you don't see it as an empire just yet, it is in my eyes. Once you begin to help people, and that's at the core of your mission and vision, that is building an empire. That is what sustainability looks like, right? It's not just about the money, it's about having impact. She's showing all of us what it means to lead with authenticity, with strategy. And so if you're dreaming of building your own lane in education, tech, or even storytelling, let Lynette's journey be your blueprint, y'all. And until next time, keep innovating, keep amplifying, and remember that your story is your superpower.
Thank
Thank
you.
y'all.